NearlyDanish.com.
In the mid-19th century, Denmark stood at a crossroads. Absolutism was collapsing. Nationalism was rising. The king had declared himself constitutional, and a free constitution was promised to the people. But at the very same moment, ancient conflicts stirred in the duchies of Schleswig and Holstein. What began as Denmark's democratic dawn would end, less than 20 years later, in a devastating war that nearly erased the kingdom from the map of Europe. How did Denmark's monarchy collapse almost overnight? Across Europe, revolution was in the air. France, Prussia and Austria were all shaken by demands for liberty and national unity. In Copenhagen, the bourgeoisie demanded change. King Frederick VII, pressured by crowds, bowed to the moment. In March 1848, he declared himself a constitutional king, ending centuries of absolute rule. Soon after, a constituent assembly was convened to draft Denmark's first constitution. But not everyone welcomed this new era. In Schleswig and Holstein, German-minded rebels demanded their own independent constitution. The refusal sparked armed rebellion. Civil war had begun. Why did Denmark's fight for democracy immediately lead to war? The duchies of Schleswig and Holstein rose in revolt, supported by Prussia and the German Confederation. Battles erupted across Jutland and Schleswig. In July 1849, the Danish army scored a dramatic victory at Fredericia, storming rebel trenches at night. Soldiers remembered the cries echoing across the field, "Forward for Denmark." But the war was far from over. In July 1850 came the Battle of Isted, the largest and bloodiest battle ever fought in Scandinavia, with thousands dead and wounded. Against the odds, Denmark prevailed. With Russia pressuring Prussia to withdraw its troops, Denmark secured the field. Yet, despite victory, the central question of who truly ruled Schleswig and Holstein remained unsettled. What did Denmark's first constitution really change? On June 5, 1849, Frederick VII signed Denmark's first democratic constitution. It established a bicameral parliament, the Folketing and the Landsting, together forming the Riksdagen. The constitution divided power into legislative, executive and judicial branches. It enshrined freedom of religion, introduced impeachment trials for ministers, and guaranteed that representatives served the entire people, not narrow interests. Thinkers like N.F.S. Grundtvig ensured that the church was defined as a folk church, not a state institution, a reflection of popular equality. Denmark had stepped boldly into the age of democracy, but its borders were still contested. How did a decade of reform and progress lead directly to a war in 1864? The 1850s brought progress. Author Mathilde Fibiger sparked debate on women's emancipation with her 1851 novel Clara Raphael. The Øresund customs duties, once a royal lifeline, were abolished in 1857. Modernisation advanced. Copenhagen Municipal Hospital rose between 1858 and 1863. But beneath these reforms, the Schleswig question festered. In 1863, a dynastic change occurred. The Glücksborg family took Denmark's throne. That same year, Parliament passed a controversial new constitution binding Denmark and Schleswig more closely together but excluding Holstein. To the German Confederation, this was a direct breach of earlier agreements. In Berlin, the rising statesman Otto von Bismarck saw his chance. How did Denmark's bold gamble turn into national disaster? In February 1864, Prussia and Austria declared war. The Danish army braced itself at the ancient fortifications of the Dannevirke, symbols of Viking heritage. But the position was untenable. Vastly outnumbered, the Danes withdrew in haste, abandoning the line without a major fight. Public outrage was immediate, but worse was to come. On April 18, 1864, after weeks of bombardment, Prussian forces stormed Dybbøl, Danish defenders, outgunned and exhausted, were swept aside in brutal hand-to-hand combat. By June, Jutland and the island of Als lay under enemy occupation. Denmark's fate was sealed. What did Denmark lose, and what did it gain from defeat? The peace terms were devastating. Denmark was forced to cede Schleswig, Holstein, and Lauenburg to Prussia and Austria. The kingdom lost 1/3 of its territory and 2/5 of its population. For the first time in centuries, Denmark was reduced to a small, homogeneous state. Danish-speaking communities in Schleswig now lived under German rule. Many would later serve in the German army during World War I. The defeat of 1864 left deep scars, yet it also forged a new path. National identity turned inward culture, language, education. Grundtvig's vision of a folk nation took root. Denmark avoided foreign entanglements, adopting a policy of strict neutrality. No longer a European power, Denmark chose survival over ambition. From the promise of 1848 to the catastrophe of 1864, Denmark's story is one of transformation. The country that abolished absolutism and embraced democracy gambled everything on nationalism and lost. The Schleswig question revealed the brutal reality of 19th century Europe. Small states could be crushed between great powers. Yet, in losing land, Denmark found unity. The trauma of 1864 became the foundation of a modern Danish identity, humble, resilient, and enduring. The central question remains: was the War of 1864 Denmark's greatest mistake, or the moment it truly became a nation? Don't forget to leave a like and a sub to the channel for more stories on Danish history.
NearlyDanish.com